Our next presenter is Alex Fredin. He's a waterfowl agriculturist and educator. Today, he'll be talking about Texas specifics for waddling, swimming, and aquatic birds. Alex?
Well, thanks for joining this presentation I'm going to be giving on. It's going to be mostly geared towards waterfowl in captivity. Some of the things I'll be talking about, I'll give it a brief history about me. Then we'll be talking about some species-specific considerations, some enrichment ideas, and the overall benefits of enrichment as it pertains to waterfowl in captivity. A little bit about us. Again, my name is Alex Fredin. My wife, Katie, and I, we live in rural South Central Minnesota. We're about an hour southwest of the Twin Cities. I started in waterfowl aviculture about 20 years ago, and over the past decade, our collection has significantly grown, allowing us to specialize primarily in sea duck and diving duck type species. Currently, we have about 14 species of ducks and 2 species of geese. While these species are our primary focus, my experience does extend to numerous dabbling ducks and geese over my prior years. Caring for these birds isn't just a hobby for us, it's a labor of love and a commitment to preserving and celebrating these incredible creatures. Balancing our full-time jobs with aviculture requires a great deal of planning and efficiency. Katie and I both work 7 to 5 jobs outside the farm, so we've had to streamline the way we manage our facility to ensure our birds live enriched, healthy lives. Our aviaries are designed with this in mind. Every aspect, from layout and daily routines, is tailored to maximize the health, enrichment, and productivity of our birds under our care. One of the things we enjoy most about this work is sharing it with others. We regularly host educational visits, welcoming biology clubs, wildlife students, and even biologists to our facility. These visits allow us to showcase the value and benefits of private aviculture and help others understand the important role it plays in education and conservation. In addition to our hands-on work, I'm proud to be an active member of several conservation and avicultural groups. I serve on the board of directors and edit the newsletter for the Minnesota Game Breeders Club. I'm a member of the American Pheasant and Waterfowl Society, and most recently I was honored to be appointed as a director for the International Wild Waterfowl Association. For Katie and me, aviculture is more than raising birds. It's contributing to conservation, creating meaningful educational opportunities, and fostering a deeper appreciation for these remarkable species. I know this has been said a lot by previous presenters, but knowing your species is a huge aspect of having birds under your care. When it comes to aviculture, that's one thing I cannot stress enough: know your species. This applies no matter what kind of birds you're raising, whether it's finches or ostriches. Understanding your bird's natural history is absolutely essential. While some species may share similar requirements, knowing the specifics each individual species will allow you to better cater to their unique needs and provide them with an environment where they can thrive. This knowledge goes beyond just feeding and housing. It's about understanding their natural behaviors, environmental preferences, and the conditions they're adapted to. One critical factor I'd like to bring up is to consider your local climate. For instance, I only keep northern hemisphere species. Where we live, winters can be harsh and cold, but these species are naturally adapted to those conditions. Actually, waking up this morning, we woke up to a blustery snow and cold northwest winds, and we're actually about 20 degrees right now, so winter is definitely knocking on our doors. If I were raising southern hemisphere species, I'd have to manage them entirely different, especially during winter, possibly requiring indoor housing or additional climate controls. This is where knowing a bird's natural history becomes so important. Climate plays a huge role in how you manage your aviary. You need to think about the challenges, conditions, and make adjustments to meet the specific needs of each species. It's not just about survival, it's about ensuring your birds can live comfortably and exhibit natural behaviors even in captivity. By prioritizing this understanding, you not only improve the quality of life for your birds, but also increase their overall health and productivity in the long run. Here are just a couple examples that I'm going to bring up here of sources of information. There's a lot of good websites and places you can find online to find information about species. And there's plenty of books out there that give very in-depth information on how these species are in the wild, what their natural habitat is. And there's also good groups that people can join and follow, such as the Avian Scientific Advisory Group is a good one. And also an organization I'm active in, the International Wild Waterfowl Association, has a plethora of information and members that have experience in a lot of waterfowl and other birds. I'm going to go over some species considerations. When managing an aviary, one of the most important things to keep in mind is the species-specific considerations for the birds in your care. Each species is unique, and their needs and captivity are closely tied to their natural history, behavior, and environmental adaptations. First, consider the type of environment your species thrives in. Are they ground nesters or cavity nesters? Do they prefer open spaces or densely vegetated areas? Understanding these preferences allows you to design enclosures that feel natural and encourage their instinctive behaviors. Next, think about their dietary needs. While some species may share similar feeding requirements, others may have specialized diets. It's essential to provide the right nutrition and feeding methods that mimic their natural foraging habits. Another factor is social structure. Some birds thrive in pairs, while others prefer small flocks or even need to be housed alone in pairs to reduce stress. Understanding how your birds interact with one another is crucial to maintaining harmony within your aviary. Environmental enrichment is also key. Species that are naturally more active or inquisitive may require additional stimulation, such as floating platforms or perches for species that spend time roosting. Providing species-specific enrichment promotes both mental and physical health. Finally, always be mindful of the challenges posed by your climate. Some species require heated enclosures in colder weather, while others may need shaded areas to avoid heat stress. Tailoring these aspects ensures your birds remain comfortable and productive regardless of the season. In the end, paying attention to species-specific considerations not only improves the quality of life for your birds, but also leads to greater success in breeding and conservation efforts. Understanding some of the feeding habits of your birds is crucial in aviculture as well. When working with waterfowl, feeding habits can generally be categorized into three main groups: dabbling, diving, and grazing. Dabbling ducks, like mallards or domestic type species, primarily feed on the surface or just below it. They tip forward to forage for seeds, aquatic vegetation, and insects in shallow water. When managing these species in captivity, it's important to replicate this behavior by providing access to shallow water features and ensuring their diet includes the appropriate mix of greens and grains. Diving ducks, on the other hand, are built for deeper water. Species like eiders, mergansers, or some of the pochard species dive below the surface for aquatic plants, invertebrates, mussels, and fish. To cater to their natural feeding habits, it's essential to provide them with larger water features. Their diet should reflect their natural protein needs as well, often requiring specialized pellets or supplements. Grazing species such as geese and some swans primarily feed on grasses and other vegetation. These birds thrive when they have access to open spaces where they can graze naturally in captivity. It is important to supplement their diet with fresh greens and grains to mimic the forage they would find in the wild. By recognizing these different feeding habits and tailoring feeding methods accordingly, you not only promote the health of your birds, but also encourage their natural behavior. This leads to a more enriched environment and better outcomes for your birds and your efforts. Social groupings are an essential consideration in having birds in captivity, particularly managing species that thrive in flock settings. Providing opportunities for flocking species to engage in natural social behaviors is crucial for their well-being. For example, in a group setting, flocking species can perform courtship displays and engage in mate selections. These interactions are vital for both their mental and physical health, as they mirror behaviors seen in the wild. However, it's equally important to exercise caution, especially with species known to exhibit aggression. In such cases, providing ample space within enclosures is critical to minimize stress and reduce the likelihood of conflict. Overcrowding can lead to tension and injuries, so the enclosure design should always consider birds' need for personal space and territorial tendencies. During the non-flocking season, it may be necessary to separate certain individuals or put them together to maintain harmony and meet their seasonal behavior shifts. Being flexible with management practices ensures that the birds are supported through the changing dynamics of their life cycles. As always, a deep understanding of their natural history of each species is key. Knowing their social tendencies, whether they prefer large flocks, small groups, or even solitary conditions at times will help you create an environment that meets their specific needs and encourage their natural behavior. By prioritizing proper social groupings, you can ensure the birds you care live enriched, balanced lives while reducing stress and promoting their overall health and well-being. Here I'm going to start to go over some enrichment ideas as it pertains to some waterfowl in captivity. Some things to consider when you're looking at enclosures. Well-designed enclosures can greatly enhance the well-being of your birds. When creating spaces for your birds, every detail matters, from size and shape to landscaping and overall design. These elements should always reflect the species-specific needs and behaviors of the birds you are housing. One of the most important forms of enrichment, especially when it comes to waterfowl, is a water feature, such as ponds, pools, or streams. These not only support natural behaviors like bathing, foraging, or diving, but also contribute to the physical and mental health of the waterfowl. Providing access to clean, well-maintained water is essential for many species, especially those that rely on water for feeding or reproduction. Another thing to consider is the footing substrate. The type of substrate you can use can impact your bird's comfort, hygiene, and an ability to exhibit natural behaviors. For example, some species benefit from sandy or grassy substrates for foraging, while others might prefer more solid surfaces. It's all about tailoring the enclosure to suit individual species needs. Nesting opportunities are also crucial. Incorporating features like natural vegetation, nesting boxes, or secluded areas within the enclosure support breeding behaviors and give birds a more sense of security. Thoughtful design can encourage nesting while allowing you to monitor and manage their health and reproductive effectively. Ultimately, a well-designed enclosure isn't just a space to house your birds, it's a tool to enrich their lives. By considering elements like water features, substrates, and nesting opportunities, you can create an environment that promotes natural behaviors, reduces stress, and enhances the overall success of your efforts. Now, here's a couple of examples of some pretty complex enclosures for waterfowl. The one on the left, it's a big open aviary with quite the water feature. And the one on the right is more of a display type enclosure, but it gives ample areas for the birds to actually live a natural and rich life with deep diving pool where you can actually visually see the birds dive. Here's an example of a more simpler enclosure. This enclosure does meet all the basic needs and that the birds have. They got a nice ample living space to go in, nice feeding structure. Also, they got a nice pool where they're able to keep everything hygienically clean and nice. It looks like some nice ample areas for birds to forage in the grass. Here's a couple examples of some enclosures where it's actually primarily for geese. The one on the left is see if it'll play here. Go back here. There was a video. Okay, the video doesn't seem to be playing, but this is a large aviary that's primarily for grazing type species of geese. It's set up with multiple nesting structures you can barely see in the back. Also on the right, that's a flock of red-breasted geese, and they have ample grazing opportunities because those species are primarily grazers as well. Now, when we look at diet enrichment, some things to consider. Diet enrichment is an important component for maintaining healthy, happy birds in captivity. While it's essential to provide a nutritionally complete diet, it's equally important to make feeding a stimulating and engaging activity. Now, some natural feeding styles, which we have talked about. Here's a northern shoveler, which is a dabbling duck species, which primarily feeds on the surface. Next, we have a common eider, which does a lot of diving. And here the duck is actually diving for mussels. And here we have a grazing species of geese. The first and most critical step is, like I've said before, is to review the natural history of the birds. By understanding their feeding habits and preferences in the wild, you can create opportunities for them to exhibit those natural behaviors in captivity. Whether dabblers, divers, or grazing, designing a feeding plan around these instincts ensures they remain mentally and physically stimulated. There are many food options available currently to us that have birds in captivity, ranging from grains and seeds to fruits, insects, and commercial feeds. Using a variety of items that align with the bird's dietary needs helps prevent monotony and keeps feeding exciting. This variety can also mimic the seasonal changes in their wild diet, which can also have positive impacts on their health and breeding cycles. Lastly, don't underestimate the importance of presentation. How you offer your food can make a big difference in encouraging natural feeding behaviors. For example, for diving ducks, to be able to dive down to a sinking feed is crucial, or scattering seeds for dabbling duck type species on the surface can replicate how they would find food in the wild. Also, adding enrichment items like hiding food and vegetation can also provide an additional layer of engagement. Incorporating diet enrichment not only ensures your birds are well fed, but also contributes to their overall well-being by making feeding time a dynamic and fulfilling experience. Now we'll see if this video plays. This video here has multiple different species. We have some diving ducks and some dabbling ducks. Let's see if this will play. Now this feeding is actually in one of my ponds that I have. This is a natural bottom pond where the birds are able to actually dive down and sift through the bottom and find the seeds as well. But millet, for example, which was put on this pond, does give benefit to where it does float and does sink. And so you can get mimic feeding behaviors through multiple different species by using that. Now this next video I'm going to play, this is a feed that I've kind of really started using quite a bit as a sinking feed. It's actually specifically made for the salmon industry for feeding salmon, but it does sink, but it has a lot of nutritional benefits to it, and it also allows the birds to show some natural feeding behaviors by diving and picking up the feed. In this next video, we'll be seeing some goslings grazing in a controlled captive environment. This is a flock of red-breasted geese that are parent raised. Grazing is vital behavior for goslings, especially in captivity. It allows them to engage in natural foraging activities that are not only essential for their diet, but also provide numerous benefits for their well-being. Grazing provides goslings with important nutrients like grass, weeds, clovers, and other plant matter, which are integral to their health. This natural behavior promotes healthy digestion and can support their growth and development. Secondly, grazing also has significant mental and physical enrichment benefits. By allowing goslings to graze, and geese in that matter, they can express instinctual behaviors that help prevent boredom and stress. The physical activity involved in grazing helps strengthen their muscles and coordination as they move throughout their habitat, pecking at the ground and interacting with their environment. Now, this particular area where these geese are grazing, it is actually meant to actually tolerate some grazing pressure. It's a mix of ryegrass and white clover seed, which can take some pressure while they are grazing, so it doesn't get trampled down too bad. Especially geese like northern hemispheric species, they grow extremely fast, and they do need to remain active throughout their growth stage to help promote proper feather growth and muscle growth. Next, we're going to talk about some nesting and rearing. Nesting and rearing behaviors are essential forms of enrichment for captive waterfowl. Providing a variety of nest sites for different species encourages natural nesting behaviors, which can greatly contribute to their mental well-being. It's important to note that offering diverse nest sites doesn't necessarily mean that offspring need to be hatched. The act of nesting and incubating itself serves as an enrichment for the adults, as it allows them to express their natural instincts and engage in behaviors that promote overall health and stability. And what I mean by is you don't necessarily need to hatch them out. Even replacing the eggs with dummy eggs, this so they have something to sit on does promote their natural behavior, and it is promotional for their well-being to actually display the fruits of their breeding behavior. Here's a couple of examples of some nest sites. On the left, we have a Barrow's goldeneye, which they actually do nest both in a cavity wood duck type nest, or they will nest on the ground, which is seen in a secluded box on the left. The center picture is a common merganser, which is nesting in a elevated cavity box. And on the right is a canvasback hen, which has buried herself into a bunch of reed canary, which just like they do in the wild. Each bird that I have, I try to mimic how they will nest in the wild. For example, on the right where a canvasback is nesting, it is a little bit more labor intensive to be able to provide, heavy natural vegetation like they nest in the wild, which they would on cattail sloughs and prairie grasses. When we talk about brood rearing, where parents can care for their offspring in captivity, it does provide a long-term benefits for both the adults and their offspring. It allows the adults to engage in vital caregiving behaviors, which supports their role as a species. For the chicks, being reared by the species is crucial for their learning survival skills and proper social behavior, especially in captivity. However, it is important to consider that mixed aviaries can sometimes result in higher chick mortality due to potential conflicts between species or competition for resources. For this reason, careful management of aviary environments is essential to ensure that the safety and success of both the adults and their young. Overall, incorporating natural nesting and rearing opportunities into captivity promotes healthier, more well-rounded birds in captivity. It is something you definitely have to be wary about, and definitely know your species when you would consider brood rearing, especially in a mixed aviary. Species like the left, a common eider, where the hens are very protective of their young, you can get away with a little bit more. Species like on the right, red-breasted geese, where they are naturally a flock type group setting, how they are raising their young is also good to know. Just a few simple ideas. Providing enrichment for captive waterfowl doesn't always require complex or costly solutions. In fact, some of the simplest ideas can have a most profound impact on their well-being. Simply refreshing or changing the water in their pool can stimulate a variety of behaviors. Clean, fresh water encourages waterfowl to engage in natural bathing, preening, and feeding behaviors, which are essential for their physical and mental health. The act of splashing and diving can also trigger breeding behaviors, as waterfowl most are often associate clean, available water waterfowl often associate clean, available water with suitable nesting and mating conditions. Moving water. Introducing moving water, such as a small fountain or water stream, can stimulate the natural environments of waterfowl and encourage them to interact more actively. Moving water attracts waterfowl to forage and explore, mimicking the dynamic conditions they would encounter in the wild, and enhancing their physical activity and overall stimulation. On the left, just the far left picture, just a simple cleaning their water bowl out or pool out, and adding fresh greens can stimulate them by splashing and being able to forage. The center picture, you can tell that Pekin duck is sure enjoying his shower. Lower left, this is a water feature which is specifically tailored towards a species like harlequins, which are naturally live in fast moving water. On the right, this next video I'm going to show is a flock of again red-breasted geese. Now this form of enrichment actually is twofold. This is probably in mid-July that this geese, it's warm out. It's probably mid-80s, and By providing them a sprinkler, a simple thing as a sprinkler, they'll be able to cool down, and also by having them active, they will continue to promote their health through being active through their muscle growth, and also be able to forage. Now, if that sprinkler wouldn't be out there currently, those geese would more than likely be loafing in the shade. But by providing them a stimulation such as the sprinkler alone, it promotes them to get out there and be active and graze. Treats, offering occasional treats like seeds, fruits, or greens can provide a rewarding experience for the birds and encourage foraging behavior. Treats can also be used in training or as a form of positive reinforcement, enhancing the waterfowl's experience of interacting within their environment. On this left video, which I'll play, this is a group of young spectacled eiders that are on a shallow pond. And by feeding them treats such as krill, they become more, for me personally, they become more used to me, more calm around me as I move throughout their aviary. And also it helps me to actually do daily observations to know that they are all healthy and active. Now on the right, I'm going to this is a feeding device. It's actually, there's a company in the US that makes these, they're called Pecomatics. Feeding devices such as hanging feed, like I will show you here shortly, or using puzzle feeders can engage waterfowl in problem-solving behaviors. These devices encourage natural foraging and hunting skills, providing a mental challenge. This kind of enrichment helps keep the waterfowl mentally sharp and physically active. Another benefit to these feeders are that you virtually have no waste. The birds will learn to hit that ball at the bottom of this feeder, and feed will fall out, and they're only probably going to eat what they are seeking. I'm gonna go back and let's try that quick, see if that'll play. Well, basically what it is, there's a spectacled eider drake under it right now. It's a feeding device where you fill up that 5-gallon pail, and there's a stopper at the bottom, which the birds will hit with their beak, and feed does fall out, allowing them to forage. When it comes to young birds, enrichment plays a critical role in the development of young hand-reared waterfowl. For these birds, it's especially important to provide stimulation and encourages natural instincts and behaviors. The big thing when it comes to young waterfowl is hand-reared birds, though raised in a controlled environment, are born with a strong natural drive to thrive. By introducing enrichment, we can tap into this instinct, helping them grow into healthy, well-adjusted adults. Providing opportunities for exploration and play helps them develop both physically and mentally. Stimulation through live food and moving water, live food like small insects or larvae, and moving water such as a small fountain or a trickle can trigger the bird's natural prey drive. This stimulates hunting and foraging behaviors, promoting mental stimulation and honing important survival skills they will need. Another thing that's huge for me is active young birds equals healthier birds, in my experience. The more active the young birds are, the healthier they will be. physical activity is essential for developing muscle strength, coordination, and overall health. Active birds are less likely to become stressed or bored, which reduces the risk of behavioral issues or health problems. Now these I don't have any live food in there. These chicks here, these ducklings, these are SMU ducklings. They're about maybe 24 hours old. They're just starting to get used to their environment, but I try to stimulate them fairly soon to get eating by dropping in either soldier fly larvae. You can see a mix of different type of starter feed there to get them going, but the trickling of a water is a big stimulation that I find helpful when starting young birds, especially hard to start young birds such as SMU are. Now again, you know, you can get creative when it comes to, you know, doing enrichment for waterfowl. Again, know this knowledge of the species you're taking care of, from flamingos, cranes to shorebirds. By knowing the species and their natural history, you will be better able to understand what they enjoy. And again, if something doesn't work, try something different. You know, on the left, there's a domestic goose where they put lettuce and some greens into a ball where they're able to pick it out of a water trough. The center picture, it's a bowl of grains and greens where the ducks are able to naturally forage. And on the right, even enrichment treat for these flamingos to be able to put water into a bottom of a pumpkin and forage the seeds out. Now, one thing that's huge for me is enrichment for waterfowl plays a big factor, and especially at our facility. Enrichment programs for captive waterfowl offer significant benefits, not just for the bird's physical and mental health, but also for their overall care. A big thing for me is when I do daily observations, by utilizing enrichment programs, I'm able to create an opportunity for consistent daily interaction with the birds. These regular observations are vital for monitoring the bird's behavior and physical condition. As you watch them engage within their environment, you can spot subtle changes in behavior or health that might otherwise go unnoticed. Waterfowl, like many animals, have evolved to hide the signs of illness or injury, which makes early detections challenging. However, by observing their responses to enrichment, how they interact with their surroundings, food, or other birds, you're more likely to notice any behavioral shifts that could signal underlying health issues. Developing a deep understanding of the birds in your care is key. By knowing their normal behavior and patterns, you can detect differences that might indicate stress or illness. Early intervention is crucial, and enrichment programs help you stay attuned to their needs, giving you time to perform health checks or address any concerns that might arise. Enrichment benefits both the physical and mental health of captive waterfowl. Engaging in natural behaviors reduces stress and prevents the onset of boredom related problems. Stress, on the other hand, can have severe consequences, leading to weakened immune systems and behavioral issues and even illness. Again, use the resources you have available and have fun. This is a new aviary. This isn't quite complete in this video, but if you look on the right, you can kind of see what this aviary was built for. This aviary is specifically for Harlequin type ducks because they naturally are found on fast moving water. So we tried to mimic that within this aviary by providing a stream and waterfall throughout their pool. Again, thank you. And if anyone would have any questions about waterfowl in captivity, or anything when it comes to why I do, or how I do it, I'm more than happy to help out and look forward to benefit everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And we do have a couple questions. First question, what are some types of enrichment that you would recommend for high-stressed wading birds like great blue herons in rehabilitation facilities?
Well, I don't specifically have any knowledge about great blue herons in captivity. The biggest thing is I know that great blue herons, by knowing their natural behavior, because they are prevalent, especially where I live, is that they do like foraging in natural ponds and pools. If I were to create an environment for them, it would definitely be a natural type setting with plenty of areas to forage or graze for bugs and such. Even by throwing mealworms or soldier fly larvae on a shallow pool would be help stimulate that, or even throwing in some tall grass like they do feed out in the wild.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What are some precautions or enrichment items that you choose not to use because you're worried about it might impact water chemistry, or is that a concern?
It does tend to be a concern. One thing that we have implemented in our facility is we have a constant water flow. There is a treat that ducks especially diving ducks and eider type species, which is dog food. Dog food, though, is created with a lot of heavy oil. So when you put that on the surface, it does kind of create an oil slick. And if you would happen to have a standalone system where you're not moving the water constantly, you would run into issues such as feather quality issues, because ducks in general naturally are always emitting oil as they are preening their feathers. So treats like that do emit a lot of oil, I would caution, unless you do have a system where you're able to get that oil slick off the surface in a timely fashion.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How soon do you offer enrichment to chicks when they're raised by their parents?
Uh, that's almost the day they're born. When they species like eiders, for example, they're fed a waterfowl starter that's a floating, and the parents actually love to devour it. So that's the day they hit the water. They are getting enrichment through foraging on the surface with a waterfowl starter that floats, because the parents can actually show these chicks that this is the feed we should be eating. And geese, for example, the day they're born as well, they hit the ground running foraging.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for that great presentation.